Well, what should we drink to?
To the groundhog.
I always drink to world peace.
Hey guys, Ralph here from the Endgame Investor, reporting from what looks to be the front of the next war to which the American administration, the Biden administration, the Brandon administration, whatever administration is running the US, and I have no idea what the hell it is. They're sending over $100 billion to here and to Ukraine combined.
$100 billion.
Which sounds great. I think the U.S. should spend as much money as possible so we can get this end game over with already, and they can go bankrupt and they can stop messing with global politics and screwing up the world. Anyway, I'm getting a little bit emotional here, given that this is now a war zone, and I have to take the end game more seriously in the most immediate sense. And I have a Dirty Man Safe on the way from the owner and operator of Dirty Man Safe, and we can see that website right now. Here, this is dirtymansafe.com. And here you have the testimonials, and we'll look at this middle one right here, which I think is genius. It says, "I buried it and it works great." Just like a dead body or a cemetery, it's all good.
Children, you have to dig. That's half the fun.
Look up, Grandpa Adams. It's Halloween.
Children, look! Right at Lavinia! She was beheaded by her own children!
Yay!
If you want to buy a Dirty Man Safe, I highly recommend it, because if you have a regular safe in your house, all that has to happen is Hezbollah invades, takes your house, looks for your safe, smashes it open, takes your stuff. But if it's buried somewhere where they don't know about, they can't find it, and it's metal detector proof. If you want to buy a Dirty Man Safe, then use the code ENDGAME10, ENDGAME 10 at checkout for 10% off, and to give me credit for the sale. Otherwise, I won't get credit, and you won't be happy, and I won't be happy, and that's not happy. And of course, if you want something to put in the Dirty Man Safe, then you'll need some gold and silver, which you can get at Miles Franklin. And to get your gold and silver with Miles Franklin, call 855-GAME-END and mention the Endgame Investor. The Miles Franklin weekly specials this week are 1/10 ounce gold 2023 Philharmonics while supplies last, only $30 over melt. These coins, since they are very small denominations, are the most liquid gold coins you can get, and $30 over melt is a very good deal for these highly liquid coins with typically high premiums. You can also get, oh, this is interesting, a 1 ounce platinum maple leaf while supplies last, random date, only $80 over spot. Now, platinum is a pseudo money. It is liquid, but it is not as liquid as gold. But if you want a little bit of platinum, I would recommend these coins. I don't stack platinum, but having a little bit of platinum is a good idea. Or you can get a 1/2 ounce Canadian polar bear coin while supplies last, only $2.75 over melt. 1/2 ounce Canadian silver coins are extremely liquid, especially in a currency collapse. These are the coins that will be the main money, not these specific coins, but coins of these denominations. 1/2 ounce coins, very good for retail purchases. Silver is for the crisis, as I explained to one of my friends today. The reason you have silver is for the middle of the crisis, and the reason you have gold is to preserve your wealth for use after the crisis. That is my philosophy, and let's keep going. We're going to talk about today the iShares Financial ETF, which represents financial stocks. We can see what it is doing here. This is its history since the 2008 financial crisis, hit a low here in 2009. And we see that it has hit the 200-week moving average very, very rarely. Once in 2016, beginning of 2016, another once during the repocalypse of 2019 over here. And during the lockdowns, it crashed through the 200-week moving average and then tested again over here. But now, if we look at the cluster of tests of the 200-week moving average since 2022, since deflation began, since the money supply began to shrink on an annual basis, that is since 2022. We are now in week 66 of absolute deflation. We'll get to that chart in a minute. But the point is here, we have tested repeatedly the 200-week moving average over and over again, about 5 or 6 times. There's about 3 tests within here that I couldn't zoom in on this zoomed out chart. But it's about 5 or 6 times since 2022. And this means that the fundamentals of this ETF, the stocks that it owns, is very, very weak right now. And we're looking for a technical breakthrough through the 200-week moving average, which could happen at any time. I saw this chart on Twitter, this little quadruple chart here. These are 4 megabanks: Citigroup, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, and Bank of America, some of the biggest banks in the country. They are all below where they were during March regional banking crisis. All of it. All of these major banking stocks, the banks are bleeding, and we're going to go into a minute why they are bleeding. Well, if you look at this, existing home sales below lockdown lows and post-2008 lows. If you're wondering why, mortgage rates are about 7.6% right now. I think the average mortgage on a house in the U.S. is now 8%, and still the housing prices have not collapsed. Well, look at this. What has collapsed? Existing home sales. It means that people are not buying homes and they are not selling homes. Existing homes, people are staying where they are. They're staying put because probably they have mortgages with very, very low interest rates that they acquired in 2020 and 2021, and they do not want to move and pay a higher mortgage rate. So the banks are stuck with these bad mortgage deals, and they're getting very, very low monthly payments, and the banks are bleeding. That's why the existing home sales are at below 2020 lockdown loans and almost just above the housing bubble burst levels. This shows that the banks are suffering the mortgages that they are being paid, and that's why housing prices are not going down yet. The banks are the ones bleeding because of this. Now, if we zoom in at existing home sales, they are down. If you look at 2022, these bars are down, these bars are up, obviously. If you look at these bars, month to month, this is the month to month of existing home sales. So they are down 18 of the last 20 months. And if you go to the period of 2005 to 2008 during the last housing bust, the period now of 18 to 20 months down is worse than any period we had from 2007 to 2009. It does mimic the period a little bit between 2007 and 2009, but it is worse than that even now because we have a few months of increasing housing prices here, about 3 in this year and a half period, and now we only have 1, if you even want to count this one, we only have 1 in the past 20 months. So we're in a housing crisis. We just don't realize it yet because people are actually paying their mortgages, but the banks are the ones bleeding. And this chart shows that of all these banks, down, 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 their equities, their stocks are collapsing. We are in a banking crisis that is already hitting. Now, if we move to the deflation chart, this is the absolute money supply, we can see why the banks are in serious trouble because the money supply keeps falling. We are in week 66 of absolute deflation. Absolute annualized deflation started around here, June 2022 on an annualized basis. This is the week-to-week money supply. And we see here, we keep hitting new lows. The low that we saw here on September 25th was 20.6 trillion, which we haven't seen since August of 2020. And here we have a little blip up, which typically happens at the end of the month. That doesn't mean anything. Deflation should continue from here because the Fed keeps raising interest rates or even keeping rates where they are at the very high level that they are now. And the only thing keeping the money supply from completely collapsing is the fact that there are still reverse repos that are headed into the banking system, but that won't last much longer. And so, people, we are in a race between what looks to be the beginning of World War III and the collapse of the dollar. Hopefully the dollar collapses before anyone throws any huge bombs anywhere and starts a world war with possibly millions of people getting slaughtered. And so, my friends, I've been rooting for the end game for a very long time, but now it has a new sense of immediacy because the dollar must collapse before World War III breaks out and kills millions of people across the planet. And I have absolute faith in God that this will happen before a catastrophe is struck. So keep spending those dollars, Congress. Spend them, hundreds of billions of dollars at a time. Bankrupt the country, collapse the dollar, and end this already so we can get to the end game and find world peace once and for all. Am I denying that there will be chaos on an end game and collapse of the dollar? No, I'm not. But disorganized chaos, it sounds a little bit safer to me than nuclear arsenals with a dollar holding them together that is about to do something crazy. I'll end with a prayer for world peace.
I like to say a prayer and drink to world peace.
To world peace.
World peace.
or you can become my patron on Patreon, where I give weekly biblical classes on what is going on in the world right now from a Jewish perspective. I never thought I'd live through this stuff, but maybe I was naive. And for all the ways you can support me, just see the links in the description below, and have a good and peaceful week.